I'm just gonna say this, y'all can't believe what Genshin just released. Usually web events are not that relevant when it comes to in-game lore, and we see this plenty of times. This apparently includes the drink event regarding the connection between Teyvat and HSR because apparently it's a fan art. However, despite that, I want to assure you that both games are still connected because they are in the same imaginary tree confirmed by the company themselves. However, that's besides the point. Not too long ago, Genshin Impact released a new event called the Song of Welkin Moon. You guys, this is huge because we are entering the lore of the Three Moon Sisters. Finally! Considering this event is going to last 2 months and will be updated from time to time, I will also make videos regarding this event from time to time whenever they create an update. Each update will of course allow me to create more lore and more than likely correct the pre-exquisite videos talking about this event. Also, I want to add something new, and that is involving you guys in my videos. I already said this many times before, but I read every single comment because your comments are also part of my research materials as well for my next video ideas. You guys might see me occasionally include your comments in my videos, and since the Three Moon Sister lore is quite a huge one considering it's related to the world of Teyvat in its primordial time, the fake sky, the 4 shining shades, Khaenri'ah, the 4 root cycles of Teyvat, Simulanka, and potentially A and Makoto, so don't hesitate to tell me about your theories in the comments. Who knows, maybe your comment will be featured next. In any case, this video is filled with theories, so take them with a huge grain of salt. As always, don't forget to give this video a like and comment so the channel can be noticed by the algorithm. My name is Neko Gitsune and I make lore and commentary videos on this channel to keep you company. Okay, so in order for you guys to understand the whole context of this event, allow me to introduce you to the lore of the Three Moon Sisters that we know of. If you already know, you can skip to this timestamp, but I still recommend you to hear it regardless to refresh your mind. In the past, there's 3 moon goddesses that were also sisters. Their names are Arya, Sonnet, and Canon, which are also part of musical terms. According to the books in Mondstadt, Liyue, and Sumeru, these 3 sisters occasionally change cycles each 3 times a month in order to illuminate the sky. They dwelt in the lunar palace and rode through the heavens in a silver carriage. The 3 fell in love with the morning stars and they shared the same love together. One day, the ancestors of the silly race, also known as an angel, met with a certain traveler from afar and fell in love. Their marriage was witnessed by the Three Moon Sisters and was celebrated in the lunar palace. However, a month after their marriage, a calamity struck, destroying the palace and creating disasters in the land. Due to this, the Outlander and the angel were punished and both are separated for eternity and have their memories wiped. The heartbroken angel devolved itself further and further, losing their beautiful figure and voice until they turned into the silly that we now see today. As for the Three Moon Sisters, they ended up turning against each other with 2 of them dead, while one of them allegedly still survived until this day, becoming the moon in the sky. Apparently after the sisters' death, the sun carrier piloted by the morning stars went down to Teyvat, creating the chasm and the Dunya ruins that we now see today. There are some things you need to know before we get into the theory section. First of all, not all angels are yet to devolve. The confirmed and at least visually confirmed are not yet to devolve are Yahuwah Tejuktin, Kalambina, and Abu Malikata, or you may also know her as Goddess of Flowers. Sibila is also an angel but then turned into a Silly after the Irmansul tree in an ancient city in Fontaine was destroyed. Secondly, the moon fragments we see beyond the fake sky, the crimson moon from Parent Harry, the spiral abyss moon, the Welkin moon, and the blood moon we see in Ace plane of Euthymia could likely be connected to the sisters, or at least one of them are. Third, there are certain murals that do show what angels look like, that being in Dragonspine, Natlan, and Surmi Island, where they are shown alongside a tree, guiding humans beside them. Finally, with the way all these lores connected, this means that Notcry is going to explore what is beyond the fake sky. After all, Dotore's research is related to the ancient moon remnants that we see in Natlan's Archon quest. With that said, let's get into the theory section. Now let's dissect each and every part of the 3 sparkles we see here. I also have to give you full transparency that I did watch Kat's video for my research, so you might find a little bit of similarities between this dissection and his video. So there's quite specific names for these moons, that being Eternal Moon, Iridescent Moon, Frost Moon, and the final one, New Moon. Other than the New Moon, The other 3 moons don't really hold much significance in the real world. The iridescent moon is the closest that I can find, and that is related to the blue moon, which is essentially the term when 2 full moons are occurring in the same month. It's quite interesting too because in the iridescent moon, there's a second moon that appears beneath the waters. I find it interesting too because the word eternal kept on repeating in this event, which could likely mean that the Raiden sisters have a strong connection with the moon itself. However, we'll discuss about the Raiden sisters in a bit. So, the first thing said here is the Trinity Moon goddesses who once steered the primordial celestial sphere and wove love and passion into the very heart of the world. The Trinity Moon goddesses is of course the 3 moon sisters, Arya, Sonnet, and Canon. Considering the event describes the celestial sphere as primordial, this likely means that the fake sky existed from the very beginning and the shining shade of void at the current time is just maintaining its form. However, it's unknown whether these sisters existed before the dragons or after the heavenly principles usurped Teyvat. Personally, I believe it to be the latter because according to Mona and Barbloth, humanity's fate is connected to the stars of Teyvat. Or it's likely the case that the fake sky has always existed before the heavenly principles came and the sky became the part of humanity's fate after some modifications per se. With that said, it's clear that these sisters are the ones responsible for creating humanity's fate. The next image talks about the 4th moon that will appear, which we'll talk about in a bit. The next bits are talking about the fate of the sisters, so let's dissect them one by one. The first is the eternal moon. The visual is interesting because the first part of the syzygy suddenly shattered, which likely means the sisters' fight directly influenced Teyvat as well. The moment the eternal moon shattered, it caused the heavens and earth to flood, which is likely the case considering floods in Teyvat do happen before. I'm not talking about the flood in Fontaine, but also in Teyvat as a whole. The most infamous flood in Teyvat is in the chasm where the flood destroyed this civilization. We learned about this when we helped a Sumerian NPC in pursuing their research with the chasm and found marine fossils surrounding the area. Inazuma is also part of it considering the islands we see today are the results of this flood. This Sumeru ass-looking domain is actually a kingdom in Narukami Island that got destroyed because of the flood. Tsurumi Island is also part of this ancient civilization considering there's a mural that shows a syzygy, a 3-body eclipse. Now this makes a lot of sense because in reality when there's no moon, Earth will not only drop in temperature but also experience extreme weather and unpredictable seasons. However, in Genshin's context, there's 3 moons, which means if every single moon dies off or is destroyed, then it will affect Teyvat in itself. The next moon is the iridescent moon, which in the visual shows that after the moon is destroyed, a moon in the sea turns red and becomes the crimson moon. Fun fact, the next livestream will take place on the 14th of March, which is the same date when the blood moon eclipse in real life will take place. This is interesting because the blood moon will only appear during a syzygy, a phenomena where Earth, Moon, and Sun are closely aligned in one place. In any case, the moment the iridescent moon shattered, a crimson moon appeared beneath the sea, and this is interesting because within the visuals, this could likely be related to the Crimson Moon dynasty in Khaenri'ah age. I highly recommend you to read both Arlequina's lore and the Book of Baron Harry, but TLDR, the Crimson Moon was praised by the people of Khaenri'ah in order to find a descendant that can transcend the gods. However, as we go, it is heavily implied that this Crimson Moon was not even a moon, but instead, the shining shade of death, Renova. Now this is still speculative of course, but with the hints that we got from Baron Harry and Arlequina's story, and even Outland's Archon Quest, we can safely say that the Iridescent Moon and the Crimson Moon, or to say Renova, have a strong connection against each other. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the Moon Sisters becomes a part of Renova per se. The third moon is the Frost Moon. The visual in this part is quite interesting because instead of shattered, its radiance disappears along with the Crimson Moon. There are plenty of ways to view this, but I think the closest that we can get to this is from this NPC named Helka from the past event called the Trail of Behemoths. Apparently in Outcry, there's an organization by the name of Frost Moon Scions. Apparently, these people worship the moon and created a lot of statues within Outcry. They are a weird bunch according to Helka, and they live in the wilds and forests. I have a feeling that the Frost Moon Scions are people related to the Seelies, perhaps related to the Seelie that married the Traveler. Now, while the angel has become a Seelie, it is unclear whether the Seelie is still alive or not, so there might be a chance that we will meet the Seelie sooner or later. But back to the moon. This moon might be the only surviving sister because instead of shattered, the light dims instead. The visual also shows the sea turns calmer the moment it dims down, so there's two possibilities. Either Teyvat's disaster calmed down after the nation's fall, or it become frozen. Like I said earlier, some NASA experts says if there's no moon, then the Earth will experience drastic environmental changes, which includes climate changes as well. Drastic environmental changes, the celestial nails. I have a feeling that just like Sumeru, maybe Snezhnaya is not used to being the frozen land we see today. Or maybe, I have a feeling that the Tsaritsa could likely be more than just an Archon. I'm gonna leave you on edge for now, but let's talk about the final moon. Finally, the new moon. This one is definitely interesting because it says Sheltered Eternity, something that Dainsleif already said to us in the trivial trailer.
Meantime of a sheltered eternity, most are content to live and not to dream.
Not only that, Eternity is something that A is very well known for. She is the Electro Archon and the God of Eternity. We'll talk about this in a second. There's also a girl in the middle sitting on the moon, with this description saying, "Yet from the ashes, the new moon rises. It's a sense spinning the wheel of fate anew." The title of this event is Song of the Welkin Moon, which means that this new moon could likely be the Welkin Moon herself. You know, that one girl you see for daily Primogems if you pay for $5? Yeah, that one. What a way to promote their daily pass, but Welkin in my opinion is worth it, so I'm not complaining. But besides that, the point is the Moon Sisters likely have all died, and the new moon, presumably Welkin Moon, will rise very soon. Now so far, according to the lore that I just told you, there is one Moon Sister that still survives. And if you take a look at the visuals, the Frost Moon is not yet shattered, as if they're still alive and they're in a weakened state. So there's two possibilities. Either the surviving Moon Sister becomes the new moon, or the surviving Moon Sister, in likely case to be the Frost Moon, is plotting something while the new moon is currently in a baby state. We'll talk about this in a bit. Now let's get onto something even more speculative. You see, I mentioned in one of my previous videos that Nibelung could potentially be the cause of the destruction that leads to the Moon Sisters' dispute. After all, the timeline makes sense because the Pep hinted at this destruction event that is aligned with the Flowers of Paradise Lost Circlet lore. Considering that the game itself hinted the Moon Sisters seem to have a huge role in Teyvat, maybe this is why Teyvat is currently isolated. Octavia, a Hexacircle witch, even said that the world outside of Teyvat is going to die out very soon, so it's more than likely related to the conditions of the Moon Sisters and Nibelung. Maybe the ancient moon remnants we saw in Natlan's Archon quest could be what Octavia is relating to. Personally, what I think about Octavia is that she will more than likely be someone that we'll meet in the Archon quest because what she said in The Little Witch and the Undying Fire is quite interesting and more than likely to be related to the current Archon quest that we're going to face in the future. But that's just my speculation, but I do hope that it's true because Octavia is quite interesting to me because she is more than likely to be a Khaenri'ah. I hope that we do meet her in Outcry at some point. My next theory is how A and Makoto are potentially connected with the moon in itself. One thing that always bugs me with these sisters is their origin that is still so unclear. We know the origins of the other Archons, like Fenty is an animal spirit that forms himself into his dead friend. Zhongli is a very old god that born from a very long time ago and has lived for 6,000 years, apparently close to the arrival of the second who came. Nahida and Rukkhadevata are part of the Irminsul tree. Fossilor is an Oceanid. Egeria is a creation of Shade of Life, while Mavuika and Xbalanque are humans turned Archons. As for Makoto and A, they don't really elaborate more on what they mean the purest form of thunder, and a lot of you pointed out that these two sisters might be connected with the Electro Sovereign, which I am sorta inclined to believe and still do until today. However, with the most recent event, I have a feeling that there might be more than just that. Take a look at the fourth image, Sheltered Eternity. Inazuma is known to be the nation of eternity. Not as in eternity in order for their Archon to live eternally, but in order to retain that eternal stagnant life, avoiding progress in order to avoid further loss. Something I also find interesting is how the fourth image shows a quite familiar figure, and this image looks very similar to the statue of the Omnipresent God. So there's a chance that the statue is not even a shining shade, but an entity from the moon in itself. After all, take a look at this. No longer sheltered by eternity, marches forward to its final end. Don't you find that familiar with Inazuma's Archon quest? With the amount of moon symbolism in A's clothing, her charge attack, and even her plane of euthymia, there's a possibility that A and Makoto have a strong connection with the Moon Sisters. There's also another possibility. While I don't necessarily think that the Shining Shades are Moon Sisters per se, they might have strong connection considering that they play a huge part in the Archon quest, especially Istaroth. After all, why did Istaroth help Makoto in planting the sacred sakura? Not to mention, since A is desperately trying to reach eternity and even consider her principles as the closest to the heavenly principles,
only through eternity are you closest to the heavenly principles.
And with the weaving fate and sheltered eternity, I personally see the statue of the Omnipresent God as something else now, and I believe it's the Moon Sister or perhaps the New Moon. Secondly, I want to talk about the 4 root cycles. If you watch my previous lore video talking about the little body, I did mention that these 4 root cycles are connected with the names of real places in Teyvat. Being Remuria is one of them, and Atlantia is potentially the new one that we'll visit as well. However, I feel like something is more than just a cycle, but also the beginning of each moon cycle. Think about it for a moment, okay? The current cycle we are experiencing right now is Khaenri'ah, and the other 3 have already passed. Same like the Moon Sisters, 3 have fallen, 1 rises. Well, not really fallen, but the event portrays the third sister as fallen anyway, so we'll take that into account for now. 3 cycles have passed, and 1 is currently that we're experiencing. Something similar to the way René describes these root cycles, Hyperborea is the loss of paradise, same with Eternal Moon that destroys civilization, Atlantia is the defeat of evil dragons, where in this case the iridescent moon shattered and the crimson moon is shown sunk in the sea. Remuria is the original sin and baptism, whereas in this case, the frost moon stops turning and the crimson moon disappears, as if the crimson moon has finally been baptized and purified. Finally, Khaenri'ah is what we're experiencing right now, freedom from the gods. In this case, the figure that sits on the moon could be the entity that frees the people of Teyvat from the shackles of fate, or in this case, the gods' shackles and freedom from the clutches of the heavenly principles. Something interesting about the lore so far is how Khaenri'ah is trying so hard to rebel against Celestia because of the curse that they're experiencing, the curse of immortality and the curse of wilderness. However, Khaenri'ah is not completely innocent either because they are trying to make the Traveler sibling to be the vessel of endless abyssal energy. If Khaenri'ah is just a reimagined name of Khaenri'ah, then there's a huge chance that the final Moon Sister will be the new envoy or the leader of Khaenri'ans, which leads to my next theory. There's something very interesting that we need to talk about Simulanka. You see, every summer event is usually a huge foreshadowing of the next nation that we will visit, and that's no different with Simulanka. However, one thing that I always find strange with Simulanka is how not everything that we experience in there is a huge foreshadowing to Natlan. The most obvious Natlan foreshadowing in Simulanka Quest is of course the name being the huge importance in Simulanka's version of Durin, the evil dragon, and the ink along with the calligraphy tavern, which ties to the memories of the origami people. All of these are foreshadowing towards ancient name, or battle with Gasoitot's dragon version, and the memories of people of Natlan that are connected with the Night Kingdom. There's also Simest and Forbear quest where they break the cycle of fate, which corresponds to Mavuika who breaks the cycle of war by defeating the Abyss directly. We also see the 3 toy soldiers by the name of Albizi, Boberano, and Kape, which corresponds to the NPCs that aided Capitano by the name of Abarawa, Posomtwe, and Kukstal. However, some things that were not explained in Simulanka are how the three goddesses in Simulanka are not foreshadowing anything related to Natlan whatsoever. Well, I guess you can say Mavuika, Yohual, Techutin, and Renova, but they don't necessarily create Natlan and its rules together because Xbalanque is the one creating the rules along with the other two, but not Mavuika. So what if these three goddesses, instead of relating to Natlan, are related to the Moon Sisters instead? Now, hear me out. Just for a refresher, there are three goddesses in Simulanka, that being the goddess of creation, goddess of prophecy, and the goddess of fate. Or in other words, these goddesses are the Hexen Circle witches, that being Alice, Barbeloth, and Understarter respectively. Mona says in the quest that the sky of Simulanka is like the mirror world of Teyvat, something that is quite relevant in the story so far because we always knew that the fate of humanity is tied with the skies of Teyvat, and this Simulankan sky is created by her master Barbeloth. However, the witches being the goddesses are irrelevant. The point is, the new event revealed that the Moon Sisters are the ones responsible for humanity's fate. I have a feeling that each moon, while of course creating humanity's fate, are also responsible for each and every part of Teyvat as a whole, including the nature in itself, considering moon in real life also a part that keeps Earth in balance. Even the way each moon's destruction is unique. The moment the eternal moon shattered, the great flood struck in Teyvat, something that the goddess of creation is quite known for since she created Simulanka's geography. The iridescent moon shattered, but then the crimson moon appeared, something that the goddess of prophecy excelled at, created the Simulankan residents' fate within the sky. Finally, the moment nations fall, the frost moon doesn't shatter but instead, she dimmed as in abandoning the people, something that the goddess of fate is known for, granting the wishes of humanity with love and passion. I personally would like to believe that these Moon Sisters have a strong connection with Celestia themselves because remember, the heavenly principles are the ones bringing humanity to Teyvat, and since the sisters are the ones weaving fate, then it's likely that these sisters are working along with the heavenly principles, and the way Simulanka's three goddesses are being portrayed is a direct foreshadowing to these three goddesses. But then, what does this have to do with Khaenri'ah? And what about you? Why don't you subscribe to this channel as well? 90% of you are not subscribed. Oh god, I'm so unfunny. But for real though, I'm working on these videos all by myself from the script to the final product, including my chibi avatars. These videos takes a very long time to make, so if you subscribe to this channel, not only you'll be helping me a lot, but you'll also encourage me to continue doing this and improve the quality of my videos. In any case, Khaenri'ah is a strange nation in itself because this is the nation where it's closely related to the moon. Like, imagine this, the nation has two dynasties, the Crimson Moon Dynasty and the Eclipse Dynasty. However, we then learn the Crimson Moon is not even a moon but instead a god, which is ironic considering Khaenri'ah has deep hatred towards gods. So even though Khaenri'ahs don't worship the Archons, they do worship gods or higher power regardless, like the first we know of Genshin timeline wise is the Crimson Moon, or in this case likely Renova, and the second is the Abyss. There's also an interesting thing being said in this event. You see, it almost feels like this event indirectly even talks about Khaenri'ah itself. The fallen nation, the Crimson Moon, the baptism, and the new moon that's about to rise, something similar to how Khaenri'ahs were destroyed by the heavenly principles, and they are very closely related to both Renova and the Abyss. Then we have the Loom of Fate, which is essentially an ancient machine that can create its own ley lines. Because you know, the new moon rises, it's a sense spinning the wheel of fate. Do you think that maybe, just maybe, this new moon is essentially a new dynasty of Khaenri'ah? Remember, an eclipse is essentially a phenomena during a syzygy, which after that syzygy, a new moon will occur. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. And personally, I kind of want to believe that there might be another dynasty that predates before the Crimson Moon Dynasty. Because here's the thing, okay? This event, while I do think it probably doesn't really talk about Khaenri'ah directly, I feel like it also indirectly talks about the dynasties of Khaenri'ah as well. So there might be a chance that there's one more dynasty before the Crimson Moon Dynasty. Because take a look at the visuals first, okay? The Crimson Moon Dynasty, and then a moon that suddenly dims on the third image. Which as in, it feels like the dim is not even the moon in itself that dims, but an eclipse. So there's a chance that there might be one more Khaenri'ah dynasty. As for the Loom of Fate, maybe this is where they're going to enter a new dynasty. Maybe this Loom of Fate not only just to create its own ley lines, but also create a new entity, and that is related to the moon, and maybe it's related to the new moon. Which comes to the next part of this video, Paimon. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Seriously, another Paimon craft theory? Really? This is the 100th time already. But, hear me out, let me cook. This is of course came from Kat's video and the other lore creators such as Minsleif, Dawit, and even Wei himself, but this is my version. You see, Paimon has always been a huge mystery to us, and even after years of this game's release, we never saw a single hint about Paimon's lore. A lot of the popular theories regarding to Paimon's origins are based on how she might be either a silly race, the primordial one, Istaroth, or even the Moon Sister. But even after all that, there's no direct hint or direct confirmation from the lore in itself. We then saw an interesting logo in this event, and this logo matches with Paimon's hairpin, which likely mean that Paimon is related to the Moon Sisters. But how? I'll let you on edge for a second because we also need to talk about the potential Moon Sister that is still alive, and that is the Frost Moon. You see, according to the lore so far, one of the Moon Sisters is actually still alive and currently illuminating the night skies of Teyvat. However, we also see in the event that the moon somewhat dims. It's either an eclipse or maybe it's just weakened. Strangely enough, even after all these years, we never even once saw the glimpse of the Tsaritsa. Not even in the Winter Night Lazo, not even in Arlecchino's animated shorts, nothing. We do however see her power at some point where she summons icicle thorns, and even her eyes is very interesting as they look rather on the iridescent side. In Arlecchino's animated shorts, there's also a snowflake that flies around to the window, and it's as if Arlecchino saw the Tsaritsa herself, and that is the aurora and the sky, and maybe the snowflake that we see is related to the Tsaritsa herself, and maybe Arlecchino saw the Tsaritsa during that time. There are several keywords here in this event that I find very interesting. Wolf love and passion. Moon, shattered moon, flood, unpredictable weather, drastic climate changes, the celestial nail, Snezhnaya being covered in snow, the creation of a new world, the new moon arises, Archons, the Tsaritsa who is no longer the god of love. What if Tsaritsa is the last remaining Moon Sister? Okay, hear me out. The event says the moons weave the fate of humanity with love and passion, something that the god of love would do. Not to mention, don't you find it weird how it seems that her goal has something related to the moon itself? The moon is also said to be extremely cold during the night, and even in every Snezhnaya related content we see, everything is at nighttime, and there's Aurora, which is some countries is related to romance and love, and also renewal. Crazy thought, but what if Tsaritsa at the current moment of time is not even in the form of a human, but mostly in the form of the moon? Think about it for a second, okay? In every trailer we see, it's nighttime. Not even single daylight is shown. Now, I have a feeling that the Tsaritsa needs the 7 noses in order to presumably revive something to recreate the new world. Something that even the final image of the event also says, new moon rises to ascension, spinning the wheel of fate anew. Perhaps it has a relation with Paimon, which both the Tsaritsa and Khaenri'ahs are interested with. Now, Paimon, our iconic travel guide. Your design now makes a lot of sense, being related to the heavenly principles, the moon symbolism all over her, and even the logo that perfectly matches the logo of this event. She might be the new moon that is about to rise, something that Khaenri'ah seems to hint at us in Fontaine, where she says Paimon is like a little rainbow floating in the air. Her string seems to extend upward to somewhere above the sky itself. Little rainbow strings extend somewhere above the sky, iridescent moon, frost moon, eternal moon. Remember when we talk about the new moon is currently in the baby state? Tsaritsa is the frost moon, and Paimon could potentially be the new moon. Yes, I am insinuating that the statue of the omnipresent god is the new moon, and this new moon is potentially Paimon in its adult form. In the Simulanka quest event, we helped an NPC toy soldier by the name of Esnoir to help his friend Razel find a way back home, and in order to do that, he had to give 3 gifts to the 3 goddesses. It's as if this quest doesn't even have anything related to Natlan foreshadowing at all. These 3 gifts are armor, sword, and a lighthouse lamp. Funnily enough, the armor is already offered by someone, we then offer the sword, and finally, a lamp. So, according to Kat, the sword is likely the traveler and the lamp could be Paimon, which I am inclined to believe, but then the armor could likely be something that is already offered, which in this case could likely be the 7 Noses. We offered the lamp last, which could likely mean the 3rd goddess in Simulanka is the Frost Moon, and what we see in Simulanka is the Frost Moon that turns Paimon into the new moon that will create the fate anew, burning the old world and recreate the world anew. Being the god of love, perhaps her love to humanity still exists, but she has to harden herself in order to achieve what she wants, the utmost of her benevolence. The strings in the sky pulls the baby moon as the new moon approaches the morning star again, which if you don't know, while the moon is very cold at night, is also very hot in the daylight, which likely to burn Teyvat in itself, burning even the Irminsul tree, in order to create a whole new world. Don't forget to like and let me know what you think in the comments. Jana!